So we're going to continue with component number 6, and in this case, it's actually going to build upon component number 4, which was the front, the face of the inside pocket. If you remember, we said we'd save this one because it gets a little complicated. It's totally fine. I think we're ready to handle it now. So all you're going to need is one piece of base color. Let me grab my box. Inside our box, there should be one really giant piece of base color. You see that right there? That's the piece that goes inside. It's going to create our hydration sleeve. And set all this aside. And okay, here's the finished product. Let me just bring that over here. So if you look at how it's finished, here's the face. It attaches to this big piece, creating an internal pocket, and it's lifted so that when you close the bag, it's a little bit easier, but also it keeps your valuables higher in the bag so that they're less likely to touch the ground. So this is what we're calling the security pocket. And yeah, let's go ahead and build this. You can see we've got a superimposed seam on top, and then we tuck this fabric underneath to create a hem there. Start things out, examine your hydration sleeve. You can see that there's a notch here. This is the top. We're going to go face to face, fold it over like this. This is kind of what the pocket's going to look like, just like that. And then this piece is going to go just like that. So what we have to do is sew face to face like that, so that when we unfold it, it'll lay just like that. Remember, superimpose seam. We are going to use a 3/8 seam allowance and just go along the top here. It's a little bit of a trick when it comes to sewing this. Remember how we said 4-way stretch always on the bottom? What I like to do is I'll lock this down right here, cordura to cordura, and then I'll flip it over and run the entire length of the 4-way stretch on bottom. What that's going to do is it's going to make sure that this corner is perfectly in line, and I can always shift the 4-way stretch around if I need to get that in place. A little extra step, but it just makes sure that everything stays straight and even, and that we don't run into troubles when trying to close this pocket up. Just working on a bigger table. The fabric keeps falling off the edge there. Okay. Just like that, we've got that attached, locked into place. All we're gonna do lay that flat, and we're going to stitch along here, right here. Just in case you didn't do the seam allowance right, or your 4-way stretch is a little bit longer, this is going to let me know how much excess to give myself so that it lies flat. Okay, and just like that, we've got our superimposed seam. We can flip that over, and now what we're going to do is we're actually going to stitch this down the edge here, making sure the edges line up, so even if we have to kind of keep moving it like that as we go. You see these two notches right here? This is the fold line, and then this is the bottom of our pocket. So what I want you to do is let's take it on this side and using like the edge of the fabric, if you've got a ruler and not a tape measure, and just kind of draw a line there. Doesn't have to be perfect, but if we draw a line there, it's going to be easier to sew, and I'll show you what I mean as we go. But let's first start off by sewing this side down here. In this case, we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Remember, as we go, keep good tension on both sides, top and bottom. Make sure the edges are lining up. Okay, so I've stopped here. I'm going to tuck this under, keeping it square until it meets that bottom line there. It's a little tricky, but I'm sure you can get it. Okay, now we've stitched along that edge. You can see we've created that fold under. We're going to do the same thing on the other side, but 4-way stretch is going to be down. It does two things. Shows us where our edge is, but it also makes sure our 4-way stretch doesn't bunch up and act all weird. As we get close to the bottom, we're going to tuck that under. That 4-way stretch, we're going to fold underneath. So we can once again make sure it lines up with that bottom fold. All right. Okay, now what we're going to do is sew across the side here, which is why we drew that line. If I flip it over, now we're following our rule, 4-way stretches on bottom, but I get to see where the notch to notch is, and all I'm going to do is sew a 1/4 inch seam from this line here. As long as this is tucked in nicely and keep some good constant pressure, it will lay flat. So roll that up. Let's sew along the edge there. Trick is if you pull, constant pressure. Check out that. Is it perfect? No. Does it have to be? Certainly not. What's most important is that it's all locked down, it's all nice and tight, and there's going to be a gap there at the bottom. So if you fold it, now on the bottom notch, all we have to do is sew down the side here. In case you're having trouble, there's a notch here and a notch here. They should line up. They should line up with the top of the pocket there. Once again, we're going to go 4-way stretch on bottom, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And the other side. And there you have it. Internal hydration sleeve with the front-facing pocket attached. You got your security pocket. What I am going to do is take my scissors, clean up this edge here, and we'll be good to move on to the next step. Next component, component number 7, I believe.